3, 2, actually 1. It's here. Here we go. All right. So I'm going live now, but I have a special guest. Whoa! You spelled your name Shaun, S-H-A-W-N. Is that how you spell it?
No, that's actually I messed that up.
Okay, we'll just okay.
Sorry.
As long as the bots don't pick it up, or whoever wants to put you on the list, you know the list. But anyways,
Yep.
no, so I'll just, for those of you who might be trickling in, I get the feeling we're probably going to get some of my followers from like Europe or Asia, for that matter. I have a lot of those guys that actually comment on my stuff, and they're pretty regular, coming in and commenting on stuff. So anyways, for anybody that's listening to the playback on the recording, this is Shaun, and we have a little bit of history, but not much. But we have a lot of stuff in common as far as hashing out the deep issues. But the thing about this is we don't have everything in common. In fact, there's probably few things that we have in common, in the sense that, you know, we are operating probably from different beliefs per se. But the thing is, I felt it necessary to bring him on today because I believe that he's a deep thinker, and I believe that he's intellectually honest. So I want to kind of approach things in a way that is from our perspective, and we can kind of hash things out and get into the meat of it. So I can see one person showing up. I don't know, Shaun, what do you have to say for yourself, and why would you be foolish enough to come onto this live stream?
So that's an interesting opener question there. So first of all, Charlie, you're a very interesting guy. We've worked together for, I think, 2 months now, maybe, as far as my end goes. Like, the thing about me, I guess, just to get right into it, is when I hear interesting things about people who are thinking interestingly about things, I'm interested in that. So I heard some of your beliefs, and I think I just kind of started walking over to your area to be like, hey, what's up, man? What's going on here and there? And then a couple of the people you work with are like, oh, you're getting him started.
Yeah.
So, and that's that to me is good. That's good that I got a person started. And then that has its limits, right? Like
the floodgates open.
Yeah, the floodgates open, and sometimes you discover that some people, once you get them started, are not actually that interesting. But you've remained interesting to me, and so I've continued talking to you, I guess. And I appreciate the way you. I think you're pretty intellectually honest too. You know what I mean? Like, you have your biases, I have my biases, but I think you discuss things.
So yeah, you've come to the realization that there's people that approach things from different perspectives, and you like to kind of get to the root of the issue about like what people are operating from, I guess you could say.
Sure.
So what is their freaking launch pad for their belief system? So again, we've kind of hashed this out a little bit already, but everybody kind of has a foundation for their building of belief, and the foundation starts with their upbringing, and kind of, you know, it stems from that initially. Now, you may not have, you know, stayed settled on that foundation. You might have actually branched out and removed yourself from that foundation that you initially had. To establish your own foundation that was probably, and quite honestly, I feel like I've been having a little more trouble disconnecting from my foundation, in the sense of like saying, and I'll just break right into it because I know that this has kind of been our point of contention. Not to say it's contention, but it's our point of, I guess, disagreement.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and again, to say that we disagree isn't necessarily saying that we understand each other fully, but we definitely want to try to understand each other on a deeper level. So that's why we're here. And anyways, so for anybody just kind of popping in, I've seen like 1 or 2 people already like kind of trickle in, and then I don't know, they're probably going to be popping in here in a second. Usually I'll go for like 2 hours, and then I'll have like 10, 15 people on just chatting it up at the end. And then like have a 35, 40 people by the end of the show. But anyways, so as far as, you know, my fundamental foundation, I kind of stem from a Christian background. I believe you could say that that was kind of a similar path that you had, right?
Yeah, I was raised Christian by 2 Christian parents. I went through, I guess I was raised Baptist, you know, hymnals and pretty old school Christianity. I guess, yeah. And I mean, I basically went to church every Sunday, and my dad took me to church, and my parents were split up when I was 5, which definitely shattered a part of myself, I guess, that split or whatever. And I will definitely admit that probably had a lot to do with my course in life. But yeah, I was a Christian as a kid, and up until I was probably 22 or 23, honestly. So
you've pretty much disconnected from that identity, so to speak. You don't identify, like if you're talking to the right person or something, you might say, oh yeah, I kind of come from a Christian background, sure. Or something like that. Like you don't want to offend them or something, and you just kind of go with the flow or something.
Yeah, some people I just simply like, if it's a cute girl or something, you know, like I'll be like, yeah, well, yeah, Jesus. Or, I mean, it doesn't really come out. It doesn't come up that way, right? Like it's not that silly or whatever. But like, I definitely say that I would probably, like, I act like the Predator does, as far as mimicking abilities in certain scenarios. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not polite to just simply say, like, right away, like, it's not good conversation to go, well, I was a Christian and now I'm not, or something.
Here we go. This guy right here says the earth is flat and motionless. So, hey, Joey, we'll probably get into that, man. Eventually. Anyways,
proof that you're that right there.
He's flying around in space. He's stuck in space over there.
Yeah, they're all circles. I don't know what to tell you.
It's funny, like there's a group of guys that kind of follow my channel that are all about the flat Earth. Now,
that's cool.
And again, I've really gotten into the meat of flat Earth, and I didn't want to get into this yet. I really want to. I still want to establish a little more about the foundations thing for the guys. So David Wolf is here, Joey, and Joey, dude, I haven't talked to you in a while, so I'm just telling you, I'm gonna want to have you on my live stream here one day. So just keep that in mind, okay? Anyways, and I don't know, I'm not like disregarding you, David, but I had an opportunity to talk to Joey on the Gypsy Road channel, and you said something that actually stuck with me, and I thought that was pretty awesome. And anyways, so moving back into our talk here, so you kind of broke away from kind of your philosophical perspective, and and again, the reason I want to, unpack a lot of this stuff is because a lot of people will try to say, oh, well, if your views are not consistent with my views, then I'm probably not going to talk it over with you or whatever, hash it out, because I'm just looking for confirmation for my bias. And
right.
See, that's the problem with what's happening in the world right now as we speak, because everybody's more interested in promoting their agenda and not understanding the other person and what they're trying to say.
Right.
So what are you trying to say, Shaun? I want to know what you're trying to say. I feel like I kind of dominate the conversation a lot of time.
No. Well, the truth is, I feel like I do that as well. But what you just said, if I can just kind of like toot your horn for a little bit, it's beautiful what you just said, man. Like, the problem on earth is tribalism. And there's nothing wrong with beliefs. There's nothing wrong with religion. I'm not in particular religious or whatever. There's nothing wrong. I think Jesus was a great guy. I think he was fantastic. I have nothing. Huh?
You thought he was a real guy?
Probably. I would say probably. I don't think there's a ton of evidence that he actually existed. People bring up Josephus and stuff, and I think there's holes in that a little bit. But I think Jesus was fantastic. You know what I mean? It seemed to me like Jesus was. There seems to be archetypes in history for an amazing human or an amazing being. Jesus was one of those. Buddha was one of those.
I like that you use the word archetype because it is kind of like something like I'm going to really want to get in kind of to the aspects of like these templates that are set in kind of this reality, and we fulfill a certain role. So like you're talking about Buddha and Jesus kind of fulfilling a certain role that was like similar, I guess you could say.
Very similar, right? Buddha and Jesus were extremely similar beings. And then some people get off into other tangents like Muhammad. I don't think Muhammad was a role model, but some people do think he was a role model. And where am I going with this? Why was I talking about this?
Well, you were talking about Jesus being a good guy or somebody that actually was influential in history, I guess, maybe.
Yeah, and I think you were saying something about what are you trying to say? I can't. Sorry, this is terrible TV.
No, this is the nature of live streaming.
So, yeah, in general, I guess just to get back to myself or whatever a little bit, I think Jesus was fantastic. He, for the most part, he was flawless, you know. And I think a major problem I have with Jesus is Christianity. I think if Christians were actually like Jesus, the world would be a better place.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they're not, and humans are flawed. And I don't fault them for that. I'm not saying you shitty Christians, you need to be better than you are. I'm just saying if they were actually like Jesus was amazing, and I think he was great.
So I again,
where are you at with your stuff? Sorry, you were going there. You were already.
No. So I was talking to this this guy that I kind of talk to on occasion here and there. He has a channel by the name of Skeptico. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
Nope.
But he basically was had a guy with a near-death experience that came on his show, and he has like 9,000 subscribers. He's a lot larger channel than mine, but he actually he's a very good radio host in the sense of like he really has good flow with how he's presenting and stuff. But so he's very interested in near-death experiences, and he is interested in the phenomenon, but he feels like everybody's always biased toward the light being Jesus on the other side. And he actually raised a point that was saying that Christianity was debunked, basically. He said something like that. And I was like, I want to comment on that because it sounds like a false premise to me, because he's actually inserting an assumption, which is that all Christians adhere to the same perspective that's actually being presented by the Catholic Church. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like a lot of people actually adhere to like the Protestant Reformation, you might say, But then there's also the ones that actually came before the Catholic Church, which are like the apostles, so the apostolic age.
Yeah.
So the apostolic age was really just like Peter, Paul, John, all those guys.
Yep.
They planted all their churches or whatever, and then it spread out from there. And the thing that I pointed out to this guy on Skeptico, he was basically saying that the church was corrupt and all this stuff, and I basically pointed out saying that I believe that the Catholic Church was actually infiltrated by the Roman pagans. So you can actually look at Constantine as a convert to Christianity, but I believe that he was politically making a move to bring people together, I guess you could say. And so you kind of like Trump might say, "Oh yeah, I'm a Christian." You know what I'm saying?
Are we opening that bag right now? Because I'll open that bag, my friend.
So the thing is, I mean, see, that's and I was just talking to, I don't know if you know Gina at work, but that lady that works on the X-ray machine.
Oh yeah,
but
yeah.
She was saying, "Man, I hate when that guy says God damn. I can't handle it. It's taking the Lord's name in vain." And to be honest with you, I mean, words are words, but at the same time, I mean, if you really want to look at it like, words carry power or something like that. But anyways, I actually heard, where it says, "Don't take the Lord's name in vain." You know the saying, right? Or it's like a scripture that says, "Don't take the Lord God's name in vain," or whatever.
I do.
So anyways, interpretation. Like, how do you interpret that? Like, I always thought, okay, you can say, "Gosh darn it," and it's not as bad. But then I started realizing that when Jesus was actually making reference to vanity or being vain, he actually was talking about the Pharisees were being vain. They were actually operating from the perspective of they were the holy teachers. They were the ones that were trying to set the standard for the Sanhedrin, or whatever you want to call it. So they were the ones that basically said, "Well, you need to look to me so that you know how to be the proper, whatever." So the point is, he is pointing out that people will actually operate from this identity of being like a Christian or something, or even saying, I serve the Lord, even though they're a Pharisee, or even though they're a hypocrite, or even though whatever. I mean, it just seems to me like oftentimes the people or the naysayers will say, "Oh, Christianity is a bunch of hypocrites, so I'm not going to follow that religion." But the reality is, Jesus actually pointed out those people before they even came. He says that there's going to be a lot of people that come along that are going to, the yeast along, and it's going to manifest, and a little bit of yeast will corrupt a loaf. It's going to, he brought out these metaphors that we're talking about, like how there was going to be corruption that was going to creep in and corrupt the whole church, corrupt the whole meaning of Christianity. So isn't that what happened? I mean, it kind of did, in my opinion.
So first of all, I love what you're saying, which is to not be so uptight about that passage, because I think that you're right. And so the first thing I want to do is, there's this popular, it's like an atheist meme on the internet that went like viral in atheist circles or whatever. And it shows this picture of the universe or whatever, well, this is just a galaxy, but it shows a galaxy, and then it shows a universe, and then it kind of spans out, and it shows it shows how small we are on this planet Earth. And the joke, I'm not going to get this right because I've had a couple drinks in me and it's been a while, but the joke is that Jesus is up there above the universe looking at every little person that's masturbating. It's like, oh, John's masturbating. That's not good over there. We can't have that. And it's just kind of silly to consider that, in my opinion. Like, so if you say God damn it in a moment, it's just, to me, it's inconceivable that, well, first of all, that a God would be that petty to hate and to discourage that or something, you know what I mean? Like, or that he would scorn that or something. So I just love what you just, your proposition, which is that it's more a problem of the soul, I believe is what you're getting at. And what my mind went to is when Jesus overturned the tables in the what was it, the temple, when the money changers or whatever. And
so that's exactly what he's doing. He's addressing the issue of people taking his name in vain. Yeah. So he was actually flipping the table, saying, "Screw you guys! You're not doing it right."
Right. And is that kind of where you're coming from? Like it's taking the Lord's name in vain is almost, it's like the hypocrisy of.
Yeah, that's who he was addressing.
Okay, I love that, man, because I have a family member that's like a right-wing Trumper, and they're a Christian, and I'll just be honest with you, man. I couldn't be more repulsed by this person, this human being. They're my family member, but we talk politics sometimes. And like I've told you before, I lean right. And like in November, I'm probably going to have to vote Trump is how I tell people I'm going to do it. But like, this person thinks Trump was sent here by God. And hold on,
I already know what they're gonna say. That he was like another like Cyrus. He was given the same like Cyrus came along, and he was not, King Cyrus, right? He was he was the Medo-Persian or whatever that freaking came over and took over Babylon.
He was a flawed man, but he was sent by the Most High. Like, yeah, it's.
See, and I was talking to my dad. My dad's like this, okay? He freaking says, Trump is like Cyrus, and Cyrus was chosen by God to come, take over Babylon and change the direction of Daniel and whatever. I mean, all this stuff. But honestly, see, I try to take a step back and realize there's a lot of ways you can interpret this kind of stuff, and I don't want to just hone in on something that just sounds so amazing to me, and I'm just going to start flaunting it out to the world. Trump is the new Cyrus or whatever. And to be honest with you, I don't want to derail where you're going with this, but obviously we're dealing with a lot of political issues now, and obviously we're probably going to get into that a little bit too, obviously.
Can I just say one thing real quick? Mm-hmm. And then I'll throw it back to you. The verse in the Bible where Jesus talks, he's actually warning people of people who pray in public.
Yeah.
You ever thought about that very much? You ever considered that?
That's you can't. You should flaunt your prayers out like you're trying to draw attention to your holier than thou prayer, basically.
Yeah.
And because some people will like say, "And Lord God, Heavenly Father."
Yeah. Oh, look at that display there. Yeah, that was a great display. That's what they do. That's what these people do. And Jesus in the Bible warned the world about those people. And he even advocated praying in your closet. What a novel idea, praying in your closet. Oh my goodness. No one's going to see you in there. Heaven forbid. That's what I would prescribe to all Christians, is to pray in your closet. And
so
really,
let's take a step back and let's kind of remove the people from this equation, because obviously that people are flawed.
Yeah.
And that people dilute anything that might be good. So it seems to me like you agree with a lot of the philosophies that Jesus kind of put out there. And again, not saying even if Jesus didn't exist, but the writer that was behind Jesus, and I'm not trying to suggest that that's the case, but I'm just saying anything is fair game when you're trying to analyze reality, right?
Sure.
So you want to kind of consider all the angles. If you're intellectually honest, I feel like there's so many ways to approach to this topic. So for me, I've tried to remove people out of the equation, because all we've done is squander. And Jesus actually referred to people as the stewards, right? They were given certain things so that to see, like the the talons or whatever. Like I gave you the coins or whatever to see what you would do with them. And when the slave owner came back and he's like, well, what'd you do with your talents? And then the story. I mean, I believe the story.
Yeah.
But see the thing. Okay, so I want to talk about the nature of metaphors real quick, because here's the thing. Like, metaphors, also known as parables, because Jesus always spoke in parables, and the disciples came up and said, like, Lord, why are you always talking in parables?
Right.
It's almost like you're trying to confuse people. And he's like, well, those who have ears will hear, and those who have eyes will see, kind of thing.
Right.
He always uses these cryptic statements that are like, well, if you're in the know, and you and I both know that there's people out there that don't know shit.
Yeah.
There's so many people that are just like, really? You're gonna, interject these project these statements that are just like based in really nothing. You're basing it on lies. You're basing it on the media. You're basing it on whatever. But it's not based in reality. It's not based in truth. You're just operating from popularity or something. And so I've really done my darndest to try to avoid operating from just trying to promote my agenda, or operate from even dismissing things that I don't want to accept. You know what I'm saying? There's things that so I always use that terminology, don't dump the baby out with the bathwater. I always say it on my channel. I'm like, it basically implies that if you're trying to get rid of information that you don't want to process through, well, oftentimes people will just reject everything that has to do with that topic, because they don't want to eat the meat and spit out the bones, right? They don't want to find the nuggets that are buried in the the information that's there, because people don't know how to discern. So this topic of discerning, I really want people to understand that when you're actually trying to unpack information, you have to be able to consider. I think that there's like a philosopher out there that basically, I'm trying to remember this quote, but it's like, if you're intellectually honest, you can consider a matter without rejecting it, or something along those lines. I don't really remember exactly the quote, but somebody in the past that was very famous.
It's ringing a slight bell. I wish I could recall it as well, but I can't.
So it's along those lines. I mean, you only a fool will reject information before they understand the full picture. I mean, there's proverbs that talk about stuff like that. Like, anyways, I'm sure you've heard a lot of that kind of stuff. Now, that's what people do with the Bible. I'll tell you that right now, especially atheists. They're going to always reject it because it's between those two flaps that says Bible.
Yeah.
And they'll never even consider what it's saying because of what their church did to them, or what their dad did to them, or what their whoever did to them. It had nothing to do with Jesus. It had nothing to do with, Paul. Maybe it had something to do with Paul, Paul was kind of an arrogant prick sometimes.
Yeah, Paul kind of seemed like an asshole a little bit. I'm not gonna lie.
It's kind of true. But the thing is about Paul, or not Paul, but who else? Oh, gosh, I really want to talk about this really quick.
Okay.
So, are you familiar with the book of Joshua, where it talks about how they were going out to take over the land of Israel, and they, fought the battle of Jericho and things like that?
So I'm familiar with it. It's not an expertise of mine or anything.
Well, most of the Christians that I know have never read it. They only know the kid story.
Right.
You know, like Joshua and the Battle of Jericho.
Oh yeah, it's a kid's song or something. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So the point I'm trying to make is that if you actually went back and read that, and Richard Dawkins
Yeah.
can recite it with the back of his hand. I mean, he literally quotes that because he hates the Bible, and the reason, and he hates Christianity, and he'll actually use the most, incriminating information in the Bible to disregard everything, right?
Yeah.
So here's the thing about Joshua. Joshua was the guy that came after Moses, and he basically took the baton, and all the children of Israel followed him into the land of Israel, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So the thing is, Joshua received this message from God saying, "Go into the land of Israel and kill all the men, women, and children and animals."
Okay. Yeah. And
okay, so
Yeah.
the knee-jerk thought is, okay, I'm going to dismiss the Bible because that sounds like a tyrant type thing. They're just trying to social engineer people, like, oh, we can't go against God because he's going to kill me.
Yeah.
That's the social engineering type of mentality that people kind of take the Bible as.
Yeah.
And but if you actually go back and just remember, context determines meaning. If you never heard that statement, context determines meaning. So if you've never read Genesis chapter 6, if you go back to the beginning, right, Genesis, it basically says that there were giants in the earth in those days, and basically the sons of God descended from the heavens and came down and had sex with the daughters of men.
Yeah, that's
created giants. It literally says that they were giants.
Yeah, that's a naughty passage there.
So to me, now sons of God can be interpreted as angels. It can be interpreted, well, there's other people out there that are saying that's the sons of Cain or something like that. But in the book of Job, it says Satan or Lucifer was actually walking amongst the sons of God. So he is an angel according to the Bible, right?
God. Okay, yeah.
So anyways, so the fact that the sons of God descended from the heavens, I mean, it sounds like aliens came down and mated with people or something,
That's what it sounds like, doesn't it? That's what it sounds like to me. I mean,
and that story right there transcends the Bible like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
It's all over mythology. It's all over, and now you could say that goes back to the beginning of religion, and it was just passed down, like the evolution of religion or whatever you were talking about before.
Mm-hmm.
So the evolution of religion, that could be one theory, but it's speculation if you ask me. If you actually go back and say, well, what if everybody experienced the same thing and then they wrote about it? I mean, that's kind of the thing that I think about too. Like, the giants, and again, a lot of people will say, well, there's no evidence for giants. There was no skeletons or anything. But you and I both know that our government and the media want to control the narrative the way that they want us to know it, right?
Yeah.
Is that true, or?
There's absolutely manipulation that's occurring. I think it's a collective manipulation. I'm not sure it's a one particular entity, but there's for sure like, at least is especially right now, there's like mass manipulation occurring. So, but continue. I'm not sure that I'm on the same page with the giants being hidden, but I'm interested in what you have to say.
Okay. So, and I'm glad that you're willing to, not dump the baby out with the bathwater, because if you're,
Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right.
So here's the thing. I mean, I have pictures stored on my computer right now. I'm not willing to dig them out right now because there's a lot. I have files that are stored in this 8 terabyte hard drive, and I have to go dig them out. But there was a point in time when I wanted to kind of shine light on like the giants and stuff. And it wasn't just giants. They were called Nephilim. Nephilim were actually known as being the fallen ones, or the corrupted seeds of people. They weren't like, so when they were calling them corrupted seeds, that meant it was a combination of God's creation and then the angels coming together and creating something that God didn't find, whatever. So God didn't support that coming together, I guess you could say. So, and I don't really know much more of that background other than, whatever the Bible actually says. Now, if you want to go into the book of Enoch, there's a little more information there. Now, as to like trying to determine what is a credible source of information, that's a whole nother animal. But
so can I position? Can I try to relay to you what I believe you're discussing right now to see if I understand it?
Yeah.
So you believe there may have been giants?
Yeah, and I actually have I want to say evidence, but there's evidence of suppression, mostly.
And is there a lack of evidence of a lack of fossil evidence? Is that what you were saying to me just a little bit ago? There's a lack of.
So there's I don't know if you ever heard of that show on the History Channel called The Search for the Lost Giants. Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it, yeah. I think I'm aware of it. Yeah.
So I'm actually friends with one of the guys that created that show on my Facebook page.
Cool.
And I actually have reached out to him asking if I can interview him, but he's just still too high profile, I guess. I believe it or not, I'm not afraid to ask somebody if I can interview him. I'm not small time. I don't look at myself that way. I would rather just assume that if someone's going to talk to me, they'll talk to me. If they're not, they're not. And I don't take it personal if they don't. In fact, I have an interview coming up probably next week. Next Sunday, I'm going to post a thing for it, but I'm going to have why can't I think of his name? Rick Hummer. I'm going to have Rick Hummer on the show. Now, Rick Hummer is like, anybody that knows anything about flat Earth knows exactly who Rick Hummer is, right? So he was one of the hosts for the Flat Earth International Conference. So I'm going to have him on my show next week. And he was one of the guys that floated across to Lake Michigan and literally was looking at the skyline of Chicago and saying that he could see it from the one coast of Lake Michigan all the way till about 15 miles or something to the other side of Chicago. So they say that a superior mirage actually causes the image to go over the curve, and it sometimes inverts it and things like that. So basically, they were trying to prove that it had nothing to do with an inversion or whenever you can see the sky. Anyways, the point is this guy is very well known because of that. But anyways, why did I go off on this tangent? What were we talking about?
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you believe in, I think the scientific term is Neanderthalensis? Neanderthals?
I have a theory about Neanderthals, but I don't really know where you're going with this.
You're saying you don't believe in them? Is that?
No, I believe that there was humans that had different variations.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. I was just curious. I don't know, like you were talking about giants or whatever, and I was just kind of
Yeah.
wondering.
Oh, that's where I was going with this. Okay, so let
Yeah.
me quickly just. Now I have a few people here. I just wanted to address that. I can see that Dark Glasses Woody's here. Joey Roca. I don't know if you guys are here anymore, but I just saw Woody show up a second ago. David Wolf. And a few other people are there. If you want to join into the chat, you can just say hello. I want to try to be interactive with you guys, and I appreciate you showing up. Well, it's like 12:16 our time, so it's a little bit late, but we're doing pretty good.
This is more interesting than sleep right now. Let's be honest about it. This is more. Sleep's boring. Right?
I know that Woody is like in Australia or something, or New Zealand. I think you're in Australia, but anyways, I don't even know where David is. Where are you guys at? What country? Are you in the U.S. or another country? Anyways, anyways, going back to the Giants. Now, I wanted to point out that there's a reason why I'm actually referencing the Giants, because this is something that, in fact, what's his name? I can't even remember his name anymore. But I think it was like episode 6 or something. They on the Search for the Lost Giants, they were starting to find these hidden rock structures that were in the east, like in like West Virginia or Vermont or something. There were like weird spots that were like, nobody talked about them, but they were, identified. Like there were signs that say, "Oh, you can come check out this little monument or something." But that's the extent of like what they. But these were like creations of like the Native Americans or even whoever was here before. And there was a lot of people that believed that it wasn't the Indian people or the natives, like the Cherokees or whoever it was, but they thought maybe it was more along the lines of like some other race that never survived or whatever. So but you could see a lot of the architecture all over the world that's actually pretty consistent. You can see like little patterns of the architecture that's almost like they learned it somewhere else and then they brought it over here. And they'll always give credence to like Columbus being the first man in America. It's like, but he saw a bunch of Indians here when he got here. So it's like, really? Why does Columbus get all the credit? But anyways, but I know I've also heard that the Vikings came here. I've also heard that the Romans came here. And again, how do I verify that? I don't know. I mean, I've heard a lot of things, but it sounds to me like not. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with the channel Bright Insight. Bright Insight.
I think I've actually heard of that.
He has like over 1 million followers.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing is, he lives in Boise, Idaho. So it's like,
oh dang, I'm definitely gonna follow him now. Cool.
Yeah. So just remember Bright Insight. He actually does a lot of stuff on ancient technologies and ancient civilizations, and how it's not consistent with history and science as we know it. And there's a lot of like, all kinds of different stuff. You'll love that channel if you're into like these, weird topics. But anyways,
you get into Graham Hancock at all?
Yeah, I freaking love listening to that guy. He's freaking
okay.
Awesome. Yeah. Now, granted, I don't really subscribe to the ancient aliens theory, but
he does. I didn't know.
So I think he does, but he talks a lot about like forbidden history type stuff.
Yeah.
He's more. Well, he's more one of those guys that they'll interview on ancient aliens, I believe. But Graham Hancock's probably more along the lines of forbidden history. So. And when I say, what I mean by forbidden history, they want to establish a narrative, and if you go outside of that, go outside of the lines, you're going to be rejected. If you're an archaeologist or something that says, "Holy crap, I just found evidence that the Earth is 20 billion years old," maybe they would accept that more than they would accept it's really 6,000 years old, because there's a lot of Christians that would say that it's a 6,000-year-old Earth. But again, I don't want to get into that discussion because honestly, I that's really taking us off a different tangent, and I don't want to talk about that.
What if I was? Can we have a thought experiment right now? Can I conduct it?
Sure.
Okay, and then you have to answer honestly to my question. That's the thought experiment. Oh, David.
Oh, David's in Rhode Island. He was just answering that, and then
gotcha. I'm just okay.
in Australia.
That's a terrible picture. Whatever that is.
Woody's a badass. I freaking love Woody. I always.
I'm sorry if that was him. I didn't mean to be insulting or anything.
No. If you're talking about David Wolf, this is a horrible picture right here.
It looks like he's about to vomit or something.
This is Hillary Clinton. This is her mugshot when she goes to prison, apparently.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Okay, thought experiment, Charlie. Thought experiment. And you have to answer quickly and honestly. So whatever comes to your mind, you have to answer, okay?
Sure.
What's the main thing you want to talk about right now?
COVID.
Let's do it, dude. See, you just did it. You answered honestly.
Well, I mean, I don't want to just leave a loose end on where I was going with it.
Okay. Yeah. Tie it up if you
let me tie it up real quick, and then you'll kind of know a little more about my foundation. So anyways, I think that this show, Search for the Lost Giants, they actually found a tooth in this cave where they suspected, and they interviewed people that said they found a skeleton in their basement that was buried by somebody that owned the house before. And it was like 18 feet long, or I forget exactly how long it was, but I saw a lot of articles that talk about 18-foot long skeletons from like the 1800s, 12-foot skeletons, things like that. And I'm not one to just dismiss like all the, articles that people saved, little news clippings from newspapers and stuff. But the interesting thing about this is the conspiracy me talking, but when they had the episode where they were trying to see where that skeleton was taken, because apparently the Smithsonian came and took it, and they gave the guy that had the skeleton there some sort of like IOU type thing. You know how they archive it and put it in like an area where it could be on display, maybe, I don't know. But they ended up putting it into an area and then sealed it up and never heard from it again. And so the Smithsonian covered it up, according to the guys that were looking for the paper trail, and they didn't want anybody to know about it. And if you ever seen the movie Indiana Jones, there's a little pun in there where he actually ends up in this archive area where he finds a bunch of forbidden historical, archives, So, anyways, but again, like when I'm talking, I'm conspiratorial. I feel like there's a little bit of evidence that points towards certain things, and I don't want to just be quick to dismiss it. So I put a lot of things on a shelf, and I just wait for the right opportunity to pull that thing back down and add it to my preponderance of evidence, you might say. So, anyways, hold on. Let me see what Woody said. Changed it for the COVID. What does that mean? Oh, wait, hold on. He says, if you are interested in the worldwide examples of how you call it Greco-Roman architecture and his history of giants, you should look into John Levi Martin, whatever. How do you pronounce that? Leak. And yeah, I'll try to look into all this stuff, but to be honest with you, I don't really have a lot of time to research about a bunch of new stuff right now. But seems, yeah. So it seems like we're kind of on the same page with some of that stuff. A lot of these guys that listen to me are in agreement with a lot of what I say. But anyways, the point is, I feel like a lot of the information's suppressed because they want to establish a narrative that they want us to believe. And I say, who's they? Who's they?
Well, do you have a suspicion of what they want you to believe? Do you have a suspicion?
Darwinian evolution.
Okay.
And I say Darwinian because everything spontaneously came about, and somehow these amino acids generated, or these crystalline, I don't even know what you want to call it, but they basically just, the proteins just somehow assembled, and Richard Dawkins has been posed this question I don't know how many times, and he can never answer it.
No one can answer it. No one can answer that. And that's the truth. No one can answer how that situation would arise. I've researched it, and at some point, you know my position on reality. I'm a materialist. I may as well call myself an atheist. You get to a point where it doesn't make sense anymore. Nothing makes sense. So
I want to unpack that just a little bit, because for me, I always assume that anybody willing to call themselves an atheist is really just dismissing everything that people say about a God, and really they just believe in no God. But but then my interactions with a lot of people that call themselves atheists is they have no reason to believe there is a God. So it's not a matter of believing that there is no God, but it's a matter of believing that there's not enough evidence to prove that there's a God. Is that right, or did I just jump in?
I think I can only speak for myself. I know other people will say that there is. I'm not qualified to tell you that there's not enough evidence for a God, although I have looked into it to a great degree.
That is intellectual honesty. I appreciate that.
I have no reason to believe in a God.
You haven't.
There may be a God. There may be a God. I just simply I don't believe in a God. I'm confused about what's happening here on Earth, on this round spherical
This is a good segue to go into the next topic, but let me just tie up this loose end real quick.
Okay.
So I'm willing to admit that nobody knows who or what God is.
Cool.
Okay.
Yep. Cool.
But people have kind of this blank that they've established, like in a sentence, like God in the blank, and then whatever. But I kind of look at it like, okay, we filled in that blank with whatever we think we want to know about God. So I've filled in that blank with saying that God is everything, and He's created a reality for each individual that is willing to interact with Him in the sense of, let's just say God is genderless, okay, whatever. I don't want to offend anybody, but I'm gonna say God is the light, or the source, you might say, and to try to say that God is even describable. And everybody that I've talked to that has had a near-death experience will say God is ineffable. There's no way to explain what God is. So that I accept that. That's a good way to, resolve what God is to me. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I still like to look into it, and I still like to take on as much information as I can about it. But and I feel like it's important to understand who or what God is, because the closer we get to it, the more we start to unravel ourselves. And the reason I say that is because I'm starting to have prophetic dreams. I'm sorry. I really believe that there's something to that. Yeah. Now, a lot of people might say, well, maybe that's not God. Maybe that's just the future you revealing reality to you, or something like that, I don't know. I mean, whatever.
You might be just tapping into the great source. You know what I mean? Maybe maybe there's a
In the
plug going in.
cosmos.
Yeah, there's a
Over there
plug
in the
going in.
cosmos where you're at.
Yeah, dude, maybe you're figuring it all out. Maybe the synchronicity's working out. Maybe this is the thing. Maybe it's God. Maybe it's just that you're tapping into the ether. You know what I mean? And it's going directly into your brain at night. And maybe you're tapping into something that I'm not trying to say it's one thing or another, but I'm just saying it's open to interpretation. And oh, dude, I didn't tell you something that you'll probably be very interested in.
What?
So I had a synchronicity pertaining to you, good sir.
Really?
Yeah, you want to hear what it is?
Sure.
So I get on YouTube a lot, and the one person I happen to pay attention to, not that I just completely get way into his hippy dippy stuff or whatever, but Russell Brand.
Yeah.
You know who Russell Brand
Yeah,
is?
he's that English guy that's like really
Just
eccentric and like crazy.
dripping with charisma. He's
Yeah.
just oozing with charisma, and he's pretty smart too about certain things. But I was, you and me were talking in the cafeteria about a few things, and you love your near-death experiences.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with tag arguments, Shaun? I'll check it out, buddy.
Yeah.
Oh no, yeah, no, I'm familiar with that, but I'll have to revisit it because I've forgotten it. I've forgotten about tag a little bit. Yes,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Anyways.
But dude, so I was looking at Russell Brand's. I was just kind of perusing YouTube. I think it was last night, and I would have never clicked on this video, but he was interviewing a person named Teresa Chung.
Mm-hmm.
And for my own reasons, I just wouldn't have normally tuned in. It's like a 60-year-old gal that he's interviewing, and I'm sorry, that's just something I might not have tuned into, but I decided to. I decided to click on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I started watching it a little bit, and she is all about near-death experiences.
So that's a synchronicity to you?
That's an absolute synchronicity, dude. I would have never.
So you don't really run across near-death experiences very often. Now it's on the forefront of your minds.
I never run across it. You're probably the only person I've heard talk about that in 10, 15 years. The last person that probably talked about that was just some crazy son of a bitch. So excuse I'm not calling you that. I'm mocking that guy in my past. He brought it up on the street corner or something like that, and then I think me and you were literally talking about it that day, and then I click on a Russell Brand video, and she goes she's all about it, but I turned it off. Huh?
You remember her name? Is she a researcher, or did she have a near-death experience?
So her name is Teresa Chung. But if you kind of look up Russell Brand, you'll see her video.
I'm gonna look up Teresa Chung.
Yeah, check it out. Now she kind of ruined it for me because she started talking about her own privilege or something, and then I was just like, I don't really want to hear that right now, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, check that out, man. She's doing.
So she's a psych doctor. It looks like.
Is that what it is?
It looks like it.
Psych. She's got a PhD in psych or something.
Yep. Anytime you mix mainstream academia with these metaphysical type things, I don't think they mix very well.
Okay.
Because oftentimes they'll just try to filter everything through academics. You know what I'm saying? And they're just trying to find a way to validate what they've learned. They want to find a reason why they can keep getting their government grants.
So it's susceptible to some sort of corruption. So
like I'm telling you, I feel like education system is one of the most corrupt systems. Now I'm saying that as an outsider looking in, because I never went through college. I graduated high school, and but again, I don't think that I feel like it's a fallacy to say that somebody has to go through some intense training to be credible. And you have to be trained by somebody else. Like, so for me, you could say I went through an intense training, but I trained myself. I didn't have anyone else teaching me. I mean, granted, I've looked to other people for information, but I chose my own path. I didn't actually need somebody to tell me, you know, this is how you're supposed to do it, so go do it. You know. So, anyways, so I have a problem a little bit with mainstream academia, only because, and again, I try not to be too close-minded, because I don't know if you consider yourself like formally trained in academics or whatever, but I believe you probably have like a degree. Is that true?
Yeah.
Do you have a BA or?
I'm working on my BA, but I have the AA.
Okay, well, and I'm not trying to dismiss your whatever you learned from that. I'm not saying that. I'm not that guy. I'm not the one that says, "Oh, well, you obviously have been deluded, and I can't accept what you're saying." No, I'm not. I'm not going to say something like that. But I do feel like oftentimes people that are trained in that way are that way toward people like me. They'll say, "Well, you got all of your information from the University of YouTube," and it's like, okay, so you're bringing it up a logical fallacy, saying that YouTube doesn't have credible information because there are people that aren't credible on there. It's like dumping the baby out with the bathwater.
You're preaching to the converted. I'm actually in this class right now. It's in my BA program, and there's this 22-year-old chick that was talking. You have to create this video about why you're super jacked about being in the program, which is kind of silly to make students do that, but we have to do that. And, oh, you have to research this BAS program and stuff. And she was like, well, I just need a better degree. And just that statement right there just makes you just cringe. It's like,
it makes me, yeah, it makes me cringe when, you know, like companies will only hire somebody that has a credential from a university.
yeah,
Because they feel like they've gone through a certain vetting process, which maybe to some degree they have.
yeah.
But I feel like it's a little bit of a discrimination, because, you know, even guys that like Lee, I don't know if you knew Lee before he left. You remember Lee?
No, I don't.
He was a manufacturing tech that trained me, basically. And
So can I pause for a sec?
sure.
So I just want to say we shouldn't say anything about work.
Oh, I won't.
That could get us in trouble.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not gonna give anything away that might help hone in on what company we work for or anything like that. Okay. So anyways, with that said, he was very qualified to be an engineer. He was in that role for a while, like 8 years or something like that, which is more time than any of these people that came out of college, right? So, and I thought that, and he thought he was well qualified for it. So the point is, they never considered him for it because he didn't have a bachelor's, right? And that's just the way that a lot of these companies operate. So, and I feel like that's just kind of the way that it's been fed to us in society.
Yeah.
Like, we have to be credentialed by a reputable source, and who determines who's reputable? It's media, it's the government, and they're the ones that feed us what we're supposed to know, right? That's the way it always has been. You know what I mean? So when you talk to me, it seems like you're intrigued, but do you think that I just speak a bunch of BS with the information that I know, or does it sound like it's coming from something that is intellectually induced, I guess you could say?
Can I speak on just what you just spoke on with the degrees?
Sure.
So that's how I'll approach this. So the thing that I've discovered about life is this, Charlie. Number one, this is the main thing that I think is going on in life. A degree doesn't necessarily mean you're great at something. It just simply doesn't. What makes you great is if you know the material, if you're an expert. The first rule of life is this: people don't want to be around assholes. People want to be around people that they can work with on a daily basis and not want to pull their hair out. You know what I mean? And I consider you to be a pretty friendly guy and fun to have a conversation with or something. So I think that you fit into that boat or whatever. But number two, I think the second rule of life is that you have to have some sort of, am I using the word right, litmus test? Like a proven ability. Sorry?
You got to screen somebody.
A screening process.
Yeah.
There has to be that, otherwise it devolves into
that's when I use the word vetting process.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of like you have to meet certain criteria, and the best way to know you've met that criteria is if you have a degree. Yeah. Because they don't just you don't get a degree like lightly. You have to do some work to get there. And
yeah, you have to work for a goal. You have to show a certain tenacity to work towards a goal. What's the word when you just promote friends and relatives? It's
when you promote.
There's a word for it. It's
I almost said shout out, but anyways.
I can't believe, let me Google it real quick. Promotion of friends and relatives.
Advocate. I don't know.
I can't believe anyways, it's a bad word. So it's the opposite of a meritocracy. Meritocracy is merit-based. You get there because you deserve to be there.
Okay, so when you're actually like a manager hiring for somebody, and you have a candidate that's like, has a lot of experience and a degree or something, and then there's your son that was a college dropout.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah, that. And that's worse, Charlie. That is worse than hiring a guy because they have a degree. That is a worse outcome. That's a worse situation to hire by, because you've almost guaranteed you're not going to get the expert in that situation. And that's the only reason I support academia. A person with a bachelor's degree probably 30% of the time is going to have their head up their ass and not be awesome, but it's better than, I can't think of the word. Why can't I think of it?
How about this one?
Promoting friends.
Dark glasses. What are you saying? Nepotism.
Nepotism. Yeah.
Is that what it is? Oh my god.
Nepotism. There are a few words that are more disgusting than nepotism. It feels good when you're doing it. Oh man, I'm going to get my buddy a job. I'm going to get my brother a job. It feels good, and then your brother likes you, but it's the wrong thing to do. It's wrong for the company, and it's better than promoting a guy with a degree. That's all I want to say, really. So.
Yeah. So anyways, forgive me for coming across like I don't dismiss somebody that went to college. I just feel like I've had enough conversations with people that have a degree that almost seem like they kind of put their nose up to me and act like they know more than me. But that's, I don't know. I can't, blanket everybody and say that they're like that, because they're not. But anyways, so let's go ahead and try another topic. I think we kind of squared away some of these other issues, but again, we could always unpack these things. Like we could sit on one topic for like 3 hours if we wanted to, but we need to cover some ground here so that we can go to bed eventually.
Yeah.
So you were talking about COVID. Okay, so let's just say our town recently, Boise, Idaho, put out a freaking mandate that we have to wear face coverings in order to function in society, whether it be outside or in buildings. Let me just tell you right now. Hold on. First, I got to show you the picture that I was sent by somebody. It was hilarious. Did I show you this? Hold on. This one right here says, to all my peeps living in Boise, here's your mayor. I'm not going to say her name just for the heck of it. Showing you a proper way to wear a mask. Do as they say, not as they do. I don't know if you can.
Yeah.
You see her?
Yeah, dude, you know what I saw just yesterday? I biked to my gym quite a bit, and I was just biking down the road, and there's some kids on. You don't notice the stuff in cars, but you notice a lot of stuff on bikes, and there's these kids on these little kick scooters, the self-propelled kicking ones, and there's this kid, and obviously his. Thank you, Tom. Thank you.
Sorry, I try to pop up these comments. I don't want to. What you're saying that. For most disciplined colleges is inferior to traineeships or job training. STEM is
STEM. Yes. Can we talk for just a brief moment how there is a movement to dismantle STEM because STEM is not inclusive? That's real. There's a real movement going on right now to dismantle STEM.
What do you mean to not be inclusive? People tell me I have white privilege. Okay, I'll try to be very careful, but they tell me I have white privilege because my skin is white. So it has nothing to do with me. It has to do with this.
Right.
But go ahead. I want to hear about STEM.
So STEM is now considered, I don't think they're using the word supremacist or not, or necessarily, but there is a movement which has actually infiltrated STEM, which some STEM people are getting on board with, which is suggesting that it's a supremacist organization and that it needs to be dismantled and rebuilt. Mm-hmm. Now, STEM, science, technology, math, I think the E is education, that is what keeps our turbines running. That's what keeps our lights on. That's what keeps our factories running smoothly. That is the one area that we can't let this radical leftist nonsense to infiltrate. And if it does, we're all in a heap of trouble. The communists of USSR, they called people, back then it wasn't STEM people. Back then it was farmers and watchmakers and so forth. They started calling them kulaks, and they kicked them out of their homes, and they killed them, and their society collapsed. And it's a very big deal that this stuff is going on, and I don't know what needs to happen, but if this type of stuff starts getting bigger, then people need to have a bigger conversation about it and take the necessary moves to stop it. I don't know. That's what I'll say. So,
remember Jessica, the girl that was on here talking about BLM stuff with me? She had mentioned something about like the people that follow my channel are racist. And I'm thinking, I don't remember reading one comment that sounded racist. See, part of it is that I feel like a lot of these people are just throwing these phrases around like they just want to just slap it on people and just, See, I'm tired of people trying to identify other people that they don't even know. Like a lot of times it's like, anyways, I didn't even know who STEM was. I never even heard of it.
So STEM, science, technology, education, and math.
Okay. Yeah,
it's just a shortened for.
It's an acronym.
Yeah, and I don't even know really why they call it that. It's just like a specialized, engineering, I guess you could call it. something like that. So
yeah. So let me just. Okay, so we've kind of already established that there's fundamentals to how we interpret reality around us, and
yeah.
and each person has kind of their own fundamentals or their foundation, and so I'm going to propose that a lot of what is happening now is some people have been very well trained into the leftist mindset, and I'm going to say it's a training process. And I believe that now I don't know what school you're going to, but I feel like a lot of the schools out there is kind of where these leftist movements are really driven hard.
100%.
Yeah. So, and I'm not going to necessarily blame the schools, but they're always politically correct and wanting to be accepting of everybody, or all inclusive, you might say. So, I feel like the problem is when they're trying to make everybody inclusive, they're leaving people out in the process. So it's like really, I don't even know the terminology, but the bottom line is they're literally, like we were kind of talking, and I don't believe either one of us are racist at all, but I feel like there's a little bit of division happening with all this racist talk, and it's not that we're separating ourselves from it. I think that number one, we're tired of being accused of being something that I don't think we are. And then the other thing is, because I work around Black people that I really think are great people, and not just them, but I have a Black really close friend at church, and my nephew and my niece are Black because they were adopted by my brother. So you can say that we kind of came from an atmosphere of people that just care for other people. It's not like we, I mean, I'm not like trying to take credit for the way my brother is, but I also said I had step family that was freaking racist. So it's not like I don't identify with other people. Like you can't just, throw people into a bucket and call them what you want. I think that everybody is individual, and you have to analyze things on an individual level, I think, and it comes down to the heart. And I believe that you're an individual. I believe I'm an individual, and we operate from our own perspectives, but we try to find common ground. That's what we're doing here tonight, is we're trying to find common ground, and maybe even educate each other in a certain way. And I'm not trying to be dogmatic with you. I'm not trying to freaking say, oh, you need to believe my way or else you're going to go to hell or something. I'm not that guy. But anyways, what are your thoughts on that?
I guess my thoughts are that this is kind of like I don't know, it's kind of touchy with me because in 2008 I voted for the man who won. And the man who won the next election as well. I voted for him. And I remember I actually had I don't know, I guess like tears, you could say. Like I kind of got choked up about it.
Get a good president. Yay!
Got choked up about it, man. And I was like, man, things are going to change now. Things are going to change. I was really that guy. And I actually remember I had this video that I played a lot, which is like, I don't know, it was like Will I Am from the Black Eyed Peas, and there's like a couple other people, and Obama. I don't even want to say it.
Oh, it's all right.
I said it.
I don't care if the bots are gonna freaking take this video down because you triggered them. Go ahead.
So there's some celebrities, and there's a Yes I Can, or was it Yes I Can? It was some slogan that was it really.
Oh, I know. I was about to say it a second ago. Yes, we can.
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
we can.
Yeah, it was yes, we can.
And if you reverse it, it says, "Thank you, Satan."
Oh,
I've
yeah.
heard that.
Yeah,
It's real. I actually tested it out.
That's not real.
No, it's real. I can prove it to you right now.
I don't want you to prove it.
I'll freaking say it. My wife gets scared when I freaking try to show people.
Oh, I've actually heard that now that I think about it.
Yeah, I mean, look it up. It's legit. But go ahead.
Okay. But anyways, I was that guy, right? And I'm so disheartened by where we're at right now that it's hard to watch news right now. I can't even watch news because I mean, I'll just be honest. Like, I feel like the amount of anti WHITE news that's occurring right now is disturbing to me. It's nonstop. Like, I'll go to Yahoo and a couple other websites, and it's just nonstop. Like,
and here's the thing: the fact that two white guys are talking about it is racist. I mean, it's like we're not supposed to congregate and discuss the matters together. We're supposed to, we got to separate this because we're not allowed to talk about these things that might offend somebody.
Well, it gets that way. It gets that way when you say a couple things. Like, for example, "all lives matter" is a very bad thing to say right now. Not acknowledging certain political perspectives of the other side is now racism, and it's unfortunate that it's there. It's really sad. It's super sad. And
see, the oxymoron to me is that all these things are being addressed as a ploy to say I've been oppressed, which very well could have been most of these people's lives. And I'm not taking away from that, but I do feel like the payment for their discretions, or the payment for their oppressions, I should say, is that we need to suffer somehow, even though we had nothing to do with it. And I've actually heard quotes from people saying, we need to kill white people so that we can make it could be amends will be made or something like that. And I'm like, really? And they're tearing down all the white statues of, or maybe not the white statues as much as just any statues that represent this country, because people don't want to support this country anymore. But they're freaking out that everybody's saying Jesus is white, and I honestly don't think Jesus was white. I think Jesus was Middle Eastern. But anyways, but again, people freaking have migrated all over the world. So, and people mutate and change over time. So I don't think that, anybody knows what color Jesus really was. I mean, whatever, but why does it matter? Does it really matter?
Well, that's what I was just going to say. Color is an absolutely meaningless concept to me. I deal with the skin that I have that's on my body. I would prefer it to be a little bit more tan than it is, but it's not. So I deal with it. And that's as far as I think about it. I just don't care.
The thing is, if there is racism, if there is white supremacy anywhere, which there probably is quite a bit somewhere, maybe in the South, maybe, in the Ozarks, I'm not sure. But the thing is, this is driving a wedge between the white supremacists and the black supremacists. and it's never going to create unity. It's going to just create more division. So the people that are not like that, the kind of happy medium, we're actually becoming collateral damage, because the other people that were screwing up on either side, we get to reap the consequences for what they did wrong. And I think it's bullshit, personally.
Yeah. Yeah. The state of affairs right now just couldn't be worse than it is. Pandemic.
And to think that it's really being organized by the media and the government, and they're backing it up. In fact, the conversation that I was having with Jessica tonight, she was starting to watch my documentary, and she said I only was 3 minutes into the video, and I realized you posted a clip of Fauci saying that face masks were worthless, and she's like, I already know that was a video taken out of context because he said that a long time ago. I'm like, I can guarantee you that was not a long time ago. That was 3 months ago.
Well, that's a medical expert that said it, whether it was a long time ago or not. That's a medical expert that knows whether masks are valid or not. You can't even bring it. Bringing up time is essentially a sort of logical fallacy in the conversation. Time is irrelevant. He was a medical expert talking about masks. I don't know.
Granted, people change their minds. I'm not like trying to take away from that, but the fact that he said something 3 months ago, and that's the point of the argument that I was trying to make, is that you're making a knee-jerk response based on what you've probably read from somebody else on a Facebook post saying that people are taking him out of context, which if you actually Google it and say, did Fauci ever say face masks don't work? It'll bring up a bunch of these, like, I don't even know. Like, I think Snopes might have something written about it, or, there's all these different articles that were written to basically debunk that statement. And they made a bunch of logical fallacies saying, like that was a long time ago. It has nothing to do with now or whatever. And she brought that up to me, and I'm thinking, you're regurgitating something that has nothing to do with this. So you're out of context because the reality, it's like, and that's the nature of these conversations a lot of times, is because, people are just starting to regurgitate and talk past each other and just want to freaking fulfill their agenda. And it's like, why don't you just take a step back for a minute? Fundamentally speaking, my skin has nothing to do with what is happening. My skin is, I mean, we've been talking about it, but, and again, I know that a lot of these people, and I'm afraid that if a black guy was watching this live stream right now, or even playing it back, maybe there's a chance that he would be offended with what we're saying. And for the record, I'll just tell you, I mean, I love people in general. I don't think that there's a problem with anybody based on their skin color. I think there's a problem with your heart if you think there is, or if you think it matters. So, and I say that from a white person's perspective or a black person.
Like I was saying, I was the yes we can guy, and right now I literally grew up in a single wide trailer where I didn't even really have my own room growing up. I was basically American poor.
And they have memes talking about this now. They have a meme that addresses the issue you're talking about. They're saying that, sorry, I didn't want to cut you off, but they're basically saying that they have all the arguments on memes now, saying, I'm tired of people saying that white privilege is, come on in if you want. You want to put the dogs away? Oh, you want to wrap up?
I'm going.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my wife's popping in.
You're waking up with your son.
Okay, I'll wrap up here in a little bit. Probably like a half hour-ish. Anyway, sorry, I totally cut you off to make a point. I didn't even make the point. It's not health issues, it's training the populace to comply. I agree. It's social engineering. You cannot deny what you see to be true for fear that it will offend. See, and that's what it's all about, is we're walking on eggshells because we don't want to offend. That's what everybody freaking does nowadays. It's freaking BS. That's why they freaking created the First Amendment, so that we could, have the freedom to say things without a tyrant to come in and stop us from what we're saying. I mean, that's what's happening now. Is they're developing tyrants, and it's incremental steps. It's just going to get worse. I'm telling you, it's going to be worse unless people fight back.
Yeah, I feel like me and you disagree a little bit about COVID. I actually think it's a thing that's dangerous, but I think it's actually killed double the people that would die during a very bad flu season. I think it's double that, so I believe that. But where I think me and you might agree with is that masks should be optional in public. Would you agree that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've done a lot of research. Have you finished watching the documentary, or did you start? One that I just did.
Yeah, I got a ton going on right now. I'm in school.
No, I'm not trying to say you need to watch it, and I'm not trying to pressure you, but I do want you to know that there's a part in that documentary where it really starts to analyze the spike in the graph. So when I say the spike in the graph, you're talking about the amount of death that came from this. You can actually see the nature of winter caused immune deficiency, I guess you could say. So like if people die from respiratory issues or whatever, it happens more often in the wintertime, right? Because of a depleted immune system.
Right.
And there's a doctor that was being interviewed on this documentary that I did, where he's basically trying to show that this is what the graph looked like for 20 years. There's no irregular whatever. There's no pandemics. This is all the viral flu type infections and kind of the nature of how they kill people, I guess. And as soon as COVID showed up, it was really recognized around early March or maybe late February. And then they started to respond to it. So the response you can see happened right when they did the lockdown. And they said, okay, everybody needs to stay in their homes because we just identified to this as being a pandemic and we need to be safe. So we're going into, tier 1 of the first wave. We have to, so, okay. I really need you to understand this perspective just based, I'm sorry, I'm like dominating this again. But when you said you disagreed with me, it triggered me. Because I think you would agree with me if you understood what I know.
Let me just make one quick point.
Go for it.
Nothing you've said so far has dismissed the idea that we're at 130,000 dead right now. You haven't said anything to dismiss that yet.
So I'm not saying, okay, I'll just establish right now, I don't disagree that people are dying. I don't disagree that people have been identified as having COVID, like the prognosis, you might say. And I would actually venture to say that there's probably been a lot more cases than they've reported. Because I know a lot of people that had COVID symptoms before, even the time that they identified to it. Like I had a friend in January. He said almost the whole month of January he was having respiratory problems, and he felt like he was going to die. That's what he told me. That's somebody that actually works in Caldwell, Walmart. So, anyways, but now the proposition on that video from this doctor and the interviewer is that when they locked down, that's when you started seeing the spike slope. Like it was a straight up spike on the graph. But then it peaked and then it dropped back down. So when they were talking about flattening the curve or whatever, they were talking about, like leveling out the graph so that, no more deaths. But the reality is, if you actually looked into all the, what a lot of these doctors were saying and a lot of these nurses were saying in the hot spot, in the epicenters of all the people dying, a lot of them said that, in order to create more room in the hospitals, they moved a lot of the seniors into the senior centers. So the infected people that were senior citizens ended up getting put with other senior citizens.
Okay.
So it kind of like lit a fire in freaking dry grass, so to speak, because these infected people spread it to the majority of the deaths. It was really the handling of the infected people that caused so many deaths, in my opinion. And it's not just an opinion; it's based on the science and a lot of the testimonies of the doctors that I've listened to, the testimony of the actual people that were there. There was guys that were saying, I cannot put people on a respirator anymore. That's not what they need. It's killing them. They are being killed by respirators. And there was a nurse that was saying that there was people that were starting to have an upward trend, but then they got put on a respirator and died. In several different cases that she referenced.
You're saying they said that they were behaving better and they put them on a respirator, and then
So the nurse was basically very, very pushy in her perspective. She's like, I don't think they should be on respirators because all it does is it seems like it's causing more problems. But if you actually, and again, here comes the conspiracy. But if you actually look at, what these doctors and the hospitals are paid out for using respirators and being diagnosed with COVID, there's benefits associated with that from the insurance companies. So in other words, they're actually there's a money trail that points back to them trying to. And I'm regurgitating what other people have been saying, like even the doctors and nurses. They're saying, we have evidence that says that hydroxychloroquine works with the proper dosage and the amount of zinc that your body needs to correct what's happening. And then they did a study that said, oh, let's test this hydroxychloroquine to see if it actually works. And what they found is that the hydroxychloroquine actually made a lot of people sick and almost die, and maybe some of them even did die. But then when you actually look at the people that are the doctors that were actually giving like a smaller dosage, they were doing great. They did fine. It's like the study started off at the highest level of the body's tolerance, that their bodies started shutting down because they couldn't handle all the hydroxychloroquine, because it's like poison with the amount of dosage they were given. So they literally rigged the study to throw it out and say that it's not a legit cure, I guess you could say. Shoot, I used the word. This video is going to get deleted, actually. Having anything to do with the word cure and COVID is like a bad combination. Anyways, I've had several videos deleted for actually saying that. But so, I mean, do you understand what I'm saying, though? Is that it wasn't just malicious, it was ignorance. They were actually, I feel like there was some malicious.
No, you got that backwards. You got that backwards. It wasn't just ignorance, it was malicious.
Yeah.
Ignorance is not as bad as.
Yeah, I mean, there was a doctor that was saying, we don't understand. It just seems like they're having altitude sickness or something like that. So like they couldn't get air to their lungs. They're breathing fine, but for some reason their lungs just couldn't receive the oxygen. So we just put them on a respirator. But what was happening is their lungs were so full of fluid that pressure going into their lungs was literally just like expanding out their you know, the little air sacs in their lungs, and literally it was rupturing their lungs. And so they were literally being killed by the treatment. I mean, nobody's willing to accept that at this time, but
I don't even know that I don't even know that I accept it, honestly. Like, I haven't looked into what you're saying.
Well, if you get a minute, watch that documentary.
Yeah, and just to kind of put my own little spin on it, but like,
Sure.
I'm not really sure what the point you're making is necessarily, because I don't know, like, shitty things happen in hospitals, malpractice happens. We don't always get it right. You know what I mean? I'm not. So I'm just talking as a guy who hasn't really looked into what you're talking about. But like, I don't know that the path you're going down with hydroxychloroquine or whatever is a highly useful one. Other than maybe if it's a lock on being a cure or whatever, that's useful, I suppose. But like, I feel like the hydroxychloroquine thing is like, it's mostly conspiratorial from what I've seen. It's like a conspiracy thing. It's like these things travel in the conspiracy community, that's just one of them or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm just simply, once again, I just don't know anything about that drug. I don't know anything about it.
I don't either, quite frankly. I am regurgitating some of the stuff I've heard from other people.
Okay.
And I'm willing to accept that maybe they're just giving their opinion and they don't have any evidence or real solid foundation for what they're saying. I just feel like maybe if what they're saying is true, and I actually have heard people say that there's several doctors out there that prescribe hydroxychloroquine and zinc as a combination with a proper dosage, and it was effective in a lot of cases. And
useful information, if true, for sure. Like, good. I don't know.
So, and I'm not, but the way I've been watching media and the, you know, like Fauci and you know, what's her name, Deborah Birx or whoever, and Trump kind of an anomaly to me, because he's always talking like it's not bad or something, but he has all these other advisors that are there freaking making up their own rules. I just don't understand Trump's role in this. He almost seems like he's trying to present like he's the good guy, but I don't trust Trump. I'll be honest with you. I just feel like sometimes I feel like he's full of crap.
I think Trump's only,
but then again,
the card that his base will accept at this point. I think everybody hates Trump except for his strong base, and I think he knows that, and I think he's just playing any card that large truck driver men and trophy wife women want to hear. That's what I kind of what I think about Trump, honestly.
You
like,
know, and sometimes I feel like he'll present things that he wants, like that's going to affect him ultimately. Like maybe will benefit him as a business owner. I don't know. I'm not trying to take away from the things that he's actually done that is a benefit to the country. I do feel like a lot of the way people portray him is very amplified and blown out of proportion. You know, he may have, you know, touched women or made rude, you know, terrible comments to them. But the reality is, you know, I hear a lot of people saying he's racist. I never heard anything racist come from his mouth, so I don't know.
Not racist.
I just feel like everybody is just making shit up and just like, you know, putting things on, you know, just labeling everybody the way they want to see them or whatever. So anyways,
racism, being crass is not racism. He's crass. He's he's arrogant a little bit, but like he means as well as the next guy. Honestly, you know, I don't know.
Here, I'm going to quickly post up some of these comments from. Let's see. Okay, we already did this one, right? Mask not health issue training. Okay. You cannot deny that you see be true, for the fear it will offend. Yes, I think. Did we already read that? I grew up on the wrong side of the tracks too, Shaun. And then the monetary incentive for counting deaths as COVID has correlation with high number of deaths. Hong Kong has something like 10 deaths. Norway deaths by all causes is lower than the last 5 years. Okay, so now underlining conditions. So I've been making a lot of videos about this topic, and I don't expect you to freaking go back and watch all of them, but I just got to say that I believe that there is a lot of deaths attributed to COVID that are probably not related to COVID.
Okay.
And they'll just say, okay, this guy died from COVID, but he had an underlying heart condition. Or this old lady that has Alzheimer's had COVID, so we basically attributed it to COVID. I mean, there's a lot of these kind of things where, I mean, that sounds a little bit radical, but I've seen an article where this woman, the granddaughter of this woman who died, was actually upset that they attributed her cause of death to COVID when she knew that her grandma was on her deathbed already before COVID ever came around. So it's almost like the numbers were inflated in some ways, based on just the prognosis of like how they determine what is COVID and what is not. So now, if you die with COVID, does that mean you died from COVID? And what does it even mean?
I mean, that's what I was going to ask you, if that's your take on it or not. Let's say they would have kept living had they not got COVID. Did they die from COVID?
Yeah, so that's really the matter at hand, trying to really understand what that actually is. And this is an important topic to me because I see the whole world coming to a halt based on this topic, right? And really, I see a lot of philosophical discussions, and I've seen a lot in the past, and I've realized that a lot of people will operate from like a perspective that they develop in their own mind, and everything is filtered through that. And I'm actually inserting that understanding on this concept, and that is that people. Okay, what if you know how you made this comment to me when I first met you, and that is we're starting to enter into kind of an Orwellian type situation, right? Isn't that kind of the words you used?
Yep.
So the fact that, you know, an Orwellian is really just making reference to the 1984 book, right?
Yep.
Now, understanding context, I started looking into what's his name, George Orwell, something Orwell, right? George. So yeah, he was actually a liberal in his time, and I believe, I don't really know his agenda for why he wrote the book, but knowing what I know of liberals now may not actually apply to the, you know, when he was alive. I think that maybe, didn't he write the book in like the 30s or 40s? I'm trying to remember.
I believe 40s. I believe it was the 40s.
Yeah.
I'd have to look it up, but I think it was the 40s.
Yeah. So sometimes I wonder. No, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say I believe the party in the book is socialist.
Oh, okay.
The authoritarian government is a socialist collectivist party.
Yeah.
So he may have been a liberal, but we need to understand what the word liberal means. Liberal just simply means something similar to excess or
more government funding.
No. No, liberal is it's broader than that. It just simply means maybe going against the grain a little bit, or maybe also excess, or more, I would say, is to simplify. I don't think it necessarily means more government. Like, I'm liberal on the way I think. The way I think is very liberal. I'm not a part of any group. I'm not joining any group. I'm thinking for myself.
So does liberal have a positive meaning to you or negative? Because some people might look at it as a negative.
I think overall it's positive.
Okay. So for me, it kind of has a negative connotation, just based on what I've heard of left versus right discussion, and it's always attributed to the left movement to be liberal. And when I understand of conservative, I started looking at it in terms of like conservative and liberal, meaning the size of the government, and that's how much government funding goes toward all the programs out there, right? So, so if conservative means less government, it actually means less funding. It's because people don't want to give so much power to the government.
Mm-hmm.
And the nature of a larger government is tyrannical, I guess you could say.
Agreed. I agree.
So that's kind of how I have interpreted the whole mindset of right versus left or whatever. But the interesting thing to me is seeing all logic go out the window with these liberal, or it's almost like the fundamentals of the left thinking are completely irrational to me. Or is it just that I don't know how to understand their perspective? Like that girl Jess, she was telling me, Charlie, you just haven't done your research. You don't really understand it. And I'm like, well, help me understand, because I don't really know how this makes any sense.
To me, the danger is collectivism. Collectivism magnifies the welfare of the group over the welfare or the autonomy of the individual. Collectivism to me is a bad word. I cringe at the thought of collectivism. I don't get on board whatsoever. I may have in the past, but now I don't. The word liberal, I just looked it up, and this is just a definition, of course, but liberal is open to new behavior or opinions and willing to discard traditional values. Now, I think that's a good thing. If we were only stuck in our traditional values, we would still be hunting with spears and worshiping the sun god or whatever god was.
See, that's why I like defining our terms. You know, we need to get on the same page with our understanding, because honestly, like what he was saying, now liberal sounds a lot like do as thou wilt. And that concept kind of came from Aleister Crowley. Is that who it was?
Yeah.
So, and Aleister Crowley, oh my gosh, that's going to really get into some deep freaking crap.
He was authentically satanic, is what you might say. He was a creepy mother effer. Because I've looked into Crowley, and he was not a guy you want to look up to at all. So I will say that.
No, I mean, his philosophy stemmed a lot into government, believe it or not.
I didn't.
Just follow kind of the Bush's the Bushes are very tied into Aleister Crowley, believe it or not. And the funny thing about this is really going to kind of change subjects, but it's interesting how a lot of these radicals of the past actually are related to a lot of the radicals of today. Bill Gates is linked to Margaret Sanger, the one who's established Planned Parenthood, which is also a movement that was kind of built around eliminating other races outside of white people.
Oh, I didn't know that. No.
Yeah. So when people say, "Oh, well, the black people have been oppressed," well, I honestly feel like people like Margaret Sanger, actually, who created Planned Parenthood, established it so that what's that?
This video is so gone.
I know we've gone all over.
It's gone. This video is adios from YouTube. So anyway, sorry, keep going.
Well, I mean, that's why I do live, so that in case they don't catch on right away, at least I got the information out there. Amy just showed up. Are we talking about JFK? Don't even bring that up right now, because that's going to really derail what we're talking about. No, I mean, we're talking about some conspiracies, but JFK, I don't think was related to any of those people. So Margaret Sanger, though, just the basis for why Planned Parenthood was created, and now Planned Parenthood is like kind of a hub movement for. I mean, they're kind of like a mainstream movement for, the leftist. And they always use these terminologies like, my body, my choice, women's rights, or whatever. And but what about human rights? My body, my choice. I don't want my face to look like this.
Well, that's my position. You have, we've talked about this a little bit, and we disagree here. I'm not against abortion, but the problem is when everybody else isn't getting their choice. You know what I mean? Your choice to wear a mask in public, that's your choice. You just nailed it. That's a problem. How about my choice? This is not going to win me any friends right now, but how about my choice to not pay child support for 18 years? I don't know. If a person has a choice to terminate the pregnancy or not, how come I have zero say in that matter? That's what I want to know. I want to say it should be equal say in that matter, and that's a shame that men have no say in that. That is my opinion, I guess.
I can appreciate that, and honestly, I mean, I've kind of gotten into the meat of the discussion with people who are so on the other side of the spectrum, like women should have all the rights, and you can't tell a woman to do what she wants with her body or whatever. I got to the point where I'm like, okay, I mean, I understand why you would, terminate an ectopic pregnancy, or what do you call it? I think it's where a baby is starting to develop in the fallopian tube. I think that you should terminate that pregnancy because it's going to kill the mother and the baby, both. What else? If it's definitely going to, kill the mother and the baby can't survive, I think you should, save the mother. That's just my opinion. Now, if the baby can be saved, but the mother might die, that might be a different situation. If the mother chooses to let the baby live and she die, obviously that's her body. But if my wife was having her baby, or our baby, I should say, and she passes out or something, and I have to make a decision, save her or save the baby, I know that she would want me to save the baby if the baby could survive. Is that right for me to do, or should I try to save her? She would never forgive me, I'll tell you that much.
So I don't tell her. You save her and you don't tell her. I know, sorry, that's not right. I'd keep the wife. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's my opinion too. I've never gotten to know that child, but granted, the child that I do know, my oldest son, is amazing, and honestly, he's changed my life, and I feel like it's the best thing that's ever happened to me to have a son. So would I change that? Would I take my son's life over my wife's life? Nope. Even still, I actually, at this point, I mean, I would probably save my son's life because he has already lived almost 2 years. And I feel like his life is more viable than my wife's at the time, at this point. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. But I don't know. There's all these different ways to approach this whole reality. So, man, I feel like the beer has kind of already filtered through my liver, and I need another one, and I actually don't have another one, so I'm kind of sad. And I don't know.
I'm at 8% battery power, so I may have to wrap this up.
Yeah, in fact, we just hit 2 hours, and typically that is my limit.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll go over a little bit if we're like kind of in the meat of something. But the fact that you lasted this long, and we could easily just open up another freaking like long drawn out discussion. But if you're interested in maybe doing a part 2 or something that maybe even make it a regular thing, I don't care. If you're willing to unpack some of this stuff with me, I'm always willing to have the conversation.
Sure.
And we kind of brushed over a lot of these topics. We spent a little more time on like the Bible and Jesus in the beginning, but I definitely want to unpack some of this COVID stuff a little more. I don't know if you care as much about it as I do, because I feel like it's the main thing in this world that is affecting everybody.
I'm more so into what I believe to be a collectivist, authoritarian, mob rule approaching than that. But
So yeah, I'm going to say that those are related. I
Okay.
think the same thing to me. And that's always how my first step into the conversation is going to be COVID, but the second step is going to be totalitarianism.
Okay. Cool.
So-
Yeah. Anytime you want to chat, man, let's do it. I'm single and I don't have any kids, so I'm just hanging out.
Yeah, and my wife's texting me, and she's like, "Please come to bed." Oh my gosh, she's like begging me to come to bed.
I don't want to be responsible for a divorce, man. So.
No, we're not even close for this right now. But just to kind of wrap it up, I'm going to kind of flash some of these comments on here, and then we can just call it a night. But Amy, you're a latecomer. Sorry you missed most of the conversation. Honestly, Shaun's a deep thinker, and I think I'm a pretty deep thinker. So I think that we're a good duo when it comes to talking about the deep issues. We don't agree on a lot of stuff, which is awesome. I like that. I like that we can disagree on things. And I'm not the contentious type when it comes to disagreement. And I don't think Shaun is either. So anyways, but Amy says if mother aborts, then she's relationship has what? With the unborn baby.
I don't fully understand.
Yeah, it's hard to understand because she said save her.
Save.
And then she said save her.
Yeah, save her. Oh, Amy, you're lovely. You're just wonderful. She's got one of those lovely faces. Look at that. She's just got a great pleasant face. I love that.
Amy, where are you at, by the way? I think David Wolf said he was in. Did you say Rhode Island? Man, how late is it over there? Freaking Eastern time.
Yeah, what is that? 2 a.m. over there or something?
Holy crap! What are you doing, man?
It's 3 a.m. over there, dude. Yeah, I agree. Keep the wife, Amy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And then let's see. Good chat, guys. Interesting to hear your perspective, Shaun.
Thank you, Woody.
Hey, if you freaking come back to my channel often, Woody is like a regular. So is David Wolf. Then
I like the green heart. When someone uses that green heart, it's like, yeah,
Oh, see, this is another thing we probably have to unpack eventually.
We'll talk about that one another time for sure.
Jacksonville, Florida. Oh, you're Eastern time too. What are you doing? It's 4 a.m. over there. Are you getting up? Or are you going to? Are you going to be going to bed soon? Anyways, whatever. All right. Well, Shaun, have an amazing 3-day weekend. Are you off tomorrow? You're off. I would imagine you're off. I mean,
yeah.
Anyways, but yeah, happy 4th. If you're into celebrating the independence of our country. It's kind of an oxymoron that they're mandating face masks starting on the 4th. But anyways,
you don't like that mandate at all.
I really don't. In fact, I feel like I have to fight against it as soon as I notice that people are starting to infringe. So, anyways, all right, man. Any closing thoughts?
I just want to say that YouTube is out of control right now. They've gotten rid of several of my people that I subscribe to. And on a very light note, that's nice. It's the same thing, but I follow this group called SBSC, Special Books for Special Children. It's a really good channel where people with special needs get some serious love and attention through interviews just like this one, but they have special needs and they're shown a great amount of care and respect, and their comment section was just taken down because of the slight possibility that someone would be not nice to people with special needs, and it's BS. And YouTube is out of control right now, completely out of control, and that's the way I want to kind of close.
I can't believe something like that would be freaking.
It's outrageous. They're stifling any type of possible non-inclusion, and it's just out of control. So,
yeah, man. Can you name a few channels? You said Stephen Malamute, or what was his?
That dude, and then so the title is a little out of control, but this guy named
Stefan.
Well, Stefan is the one, and another guy I follow named Atheism is Unstoppable. So the title is out of control, but he doesn't really talk religion. He's just been kind of blowing back against like this propaganda that's going on right now, this propaganda war. And
I was talking about COVID stuff too, huh?
Yeah. And before people start calling me a white supremacist or something, I'm not. I shouldn't have even said that. I watched lovely channels like the one I just mentioned called SBDSE, where people who genuinely need love, who have special needs, and then some comment sections getting tore down. It's ridiculous. Sorry, I'm going on a tangent right now.
Yeah.
But
I'm gonna send my wife a text as we're getting off here. But again, Shaun, I'm always looking for people to talk to about the deep issues, and I always think that we should talk on forums like this where people can kind of make their own decisions. You know, if I'm presenting a good point, or if you're presenting a good point, you know, I'm a believer that people that are authentically in pursuit of truth, I believe truth will reveal itself to people if they're open-minded. And you know, you could say truth is subjective or whatever, but to be honest with you, I feel like anybody that keeps going on this path will eventually get to that nugget of truth. So, anyways, let's call it a night, man, and we can revisit this next time, I guess. So,
I like it.
All right, man. It was nice chatting with you. Have a good night. Okay.
See you, man. Bye.
Thanks, everybody else. Have a good night.